I don't think the real problem is that we're going fast and need to go slow. I think it's something more to do with allowing reality to unfold at the speed that it unfolds and not trying to use sort of willpower to force the pace. Where you can make the space in your day or in your life for pushing back against that, for not just immediately completely complying with the social pressure towards acceleration. If you can handle the discomfort that arises when you resist it, actually that is, I believe, totally helpful for thriving and surviving and for doing well and for, having a successful career and making money and all the rest of it.
If you could, something I really enjoyed in the book, and which I felt maybe had a bit of a tinge of a left-wing angle to it, was your exploration of the reconceptualization of time, slowly from kind of this typical medieval peasant or medieval serf who was farming on land, to what we have today, and how time has kind of become to be viewed as a resource. Maybe you could just walk us through that, because I found it super interesting how it's tied into history.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a bit evasive when on the sort of big causal arguments, because I think there's so many different things going on here. This is like human nature and evolutionary psychology, but it's also the history of industrialization and capitalism and technology. And there's lots in the sort of Judeo-Christian religious traditions that feed into this. But anyway, I do think that if you had been like a medieval peasant in like the North York Moors, where I'm speaking from now, in the middle of the Middle Ages, you'd have had a very large number of problems, terrible life in all sorts of ways, and a very short life expectancy. But I don't think you would have experienced problems that we think of as problems of time, like having too much to do or being in a rush or not feeling guilty for wasting time. Just because that whole setup, like there's me and there's my time, and I've got to manage it well today, and I've got to use it effectively today. And if I don't, then it's, I should feel bad about that, or I might fall behind in the rat race. All of that, I think, comes with, first of all, the invention of clocks and that objective ideas about time that come from that. And then the Industrial Revolution and the sort of sale of time, the context of like the shift in a factory or a mill where you're, as a worker, you're selling an hour of your time rather than, working in a piecework way. And that whole shift, I think, really, it's essential for organizing modern society. And I don't think we should go back to being medieval people on any level. But something is lost when you sort of only relate to time as this resource for being used, when you only can think of sort of measuring up your activities through the day against this kind of imaginary yardstick. Like, did I get through that in time? Have I got enough time before Friday's deadline to do this stuff? It's a very sort of tormenting way to live. And there is this other way of living that anthropologists call task orientation, right? Where it tends to be in communities that are very close to nature in the work they do, but like you just get up when the sun rises, you just milk the cows when the cows need milking, you just harvest the crops when the crops are ready to be harvested. It doesn't work to try to force it onto a schedule. So yeah, that's the change. I guess it is a bit political. I'm certainly not left-wing enough to think that like or Luddite enough to think that like everything that comes with industrialization and the objectification of time is all bad. But it definitely does something to the soul to live in a society that is only like that.
Well, look, yeah, it's definitely one negative consequence against many other positive ones. And the balance is really what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But I think maybe a hyperbolic example, which you could tell the listeners about, is the parable of the Mexican fisherman and the American businessman, which kind of sum up the stupidity of seeing time as just one resource among others.
Yeah, this is a sort of like fable whose origins are lost to history, although somebody did contact me the other day and claim that they located the original source, which I now can't remember. So anyway, it's not my story, and it's a little bit, full of national stereotypes, but it does get at something important, which is, and so the story is about sort of hard-charging, highly motivated American businessman who goes on vacation to Mexico and gets talking to a fisherman and asks him what he does, and he says, "Well, in the morning I go fishing for a couple of hours, enough, sell the fish at market or whatever. And then and I could spend the rest of the day drinking wine and playing music in the sun with my friends. And the businessman says, well, hold on a second. You're not thinking about this right. If you worked more, if you really got efficient about this, if you put in a bunch more hours each day as doing the fishing, eventually you could employ a whole fleet of fishing boats, and you could be like the manager of the company. Then you could make millions and millions, and you could sort of, you wouldn't ever have to work at all eventually, right? You've just got this whole thing. And then finally, when you've got millions and millions, you can just retire early, earlier than you otherwise would. And the fisherman says, well, and then what would I do? And the businessman says, well, then you could spend your days playing music and drinking wine in the sun with your friends. So just to spell it out, in case it wasn't clear, I mean, this idea that you are on a quest for a kind of life that is in fact available to you now, that if you instrumentalize all your time to try to get to this point where you will have arrived, you're missing out on the possibility that a lot of those things are just the things that people want to do already, and that meaning is available to you in your life right here, instead of only at the end of a quest of productivity and efficiency. I remember, I've never found the source of this, but I remember reading an article, and then I just vanished, about a group of extremely wealthy tourists who were on some sort of very VIP trip, where when you've got too much money, you have to be taken on a very special kind of tour. Otherwise, nothing is interesting anymore. And seeing these amazing sights and dining at these most amazing restaurants. And I think getting stuck in a first-class airport lounge at some point because of a delayed flight, and all just getting chatting about life or stuff or philosophy. I don't remember the details. And looking back on that as the highlight of the whole trip, not the pyramids at Giza and not the Michelin-starred restaurants, but just actually getting to chat and make friends with some people, which you can do without a fortune of hundreds of millions of dollars.
I think the Mexican fisherman parable is really tied up with what you call the limit embracing attitude to time. The idea that maybe we shouldn't instrumentalize everything. Could you maybe unpack that a little bit, and then we could talk about it?
Yeah, I think basically the instrumentalizing time in this way, I think the reason we do all of this stuff, the reason we go along with the acceleration of society, the reason we try to stuff more and more into our schedules, all the rest of it, is ultimately to resist feeling what it's like to actually be limited in life, to resist the sort of claustrophobic feeling that actually you've got a certain amount of time, certain amount of energy and attention, and you've just got to make choices about what you're going to be using it for, right? So the joy of optimizing and of working towards this moment in the future is that you don't quite have to take responsibility for the fact that this is life now. You get to be like, oh no, I'm just sorting everything out, and I'm getting into the position where I will later be able to do everything. So the limit embracing life is just what happens when you step more authentically and fully into the situation you're actually in. And my new book, Meditations for Mortals, has this subtitle, 4 weeks to embrace your limitations and make time for what counts. It's my argument is that chasing this place where we're not limited anymore actually impedes us, stops us from doing meaningful, interesting, impressive stuff in life, because we're always working towards this future moment where we're not limited and can finally start living properly.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that clip from our interview with Oliver Burkeman. If you'd like to check out the full interview, you can click right here. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and drop a comment with your thoughts down below. Stay tuned and see you next time.